Hey, are you still using the iPhone 6 Plus? Can you really use it? I did it for a week, so let's discuss. What's up guys, and welcome back to a very interesting video on the channel. Call me crazy, but I switched from my iPhone 13 Pro to an 8-year-old iPhone 6 Plus for a full week. Apple just moved this iPhone 6 Plus to its vintage product category, so I wanted to test it out if it works in 2022 or not, if yes, to what extent. So I tried restoring the backup of my iPhone 13 Pro onto the iPhone 6 Plus, but it failed because the 13 Pro runs on the latest iOS 15 while the 6 Plus runs on iOS 12. So I manually set it up, installed all the apps that I frequently use on the 13 Pro and started testing it. Now honestly guys, I expected a big difference when it comes to app compatibility on this older iPhone and also support for the new features. So let's start with the most important thing first. How many apps can iPhone 6 Plus actually run in 2022? So we have the iPhone 13 Pro on the left, and I am showing you my home screen which has all the apps and settings that I use on daily basis. On the right we have the iPhone 6 Plus. Now firstly, a clear difference between them is no widget support on the 6 as widgets came in iOS 14. Also, another notable miss when it comes to features is the dark mode because it was introduced in iOS 13. Now both these features are an integral part of how I use my iPhone because I won't enjoy using my iPhone without dark mode or widgets, but I decided to give it a pass because just setting a dark wallpaper gives you dark notification shade and control center, and also there are dark modes in apps like YouTube and ClickBus which I use a lot. So I was fine with it, and the widgets are available on the left side of the home screen, so that's fine too. But when it comes to apps, the 6 Plus supports most of my apps that I use on daily basis like WhatsApp, Gmail, ClickBus, TimeHop, YouTube, Instagram, Chess and a few others to go with them. But there are also apps like Amazon and Google Pay which says it requires iOS 13 to run. So that's a red flag for me because I purchase a lot of things from Amazon and pay a lot via Google Pay. So it is important for me that these apps work, but they don't. And also you might see a lot of pop-ups like this saying that the latest version of the app is not compatible, but you can use an older version of the app, which is fine, just that you might not be able to use all the latest and greatest features of that app. When it comes to app compatibility, not every app works, but most of the apps do, so I will give it a pass. Now it's a phone, right? So how's the calling experience? And I would say it's fantastic, and there's a reason for that. Despite being an 8-year-old iPhone, this is still a 4G phone and has all the latest features like Wi-Fi calling and VoLTE. Plus it also has Apple's latest calls on other devices features. That means if you have a problem on this iPhone 13 Pro receiving calls, you can receive calls on this iPhone 6 Plus without inserting the SIM card into it. How cool is that? Plus it's great that this phone had nano SIM back in 2014 when every other phone had big SIM cards, mini or micro, but this one had a nano SIM, and back in the day I would bash Apple for doing that, but they had a vision, and now every smartphone that come into the market has the nano SIM card. So I didn't have to make any changes to a SIM card while switching from this phone to this phone. So calling experience A+. Another very important thing while using an old phone is the battery life. Can this phone last a full working day? And guys, here is the biggest surprise that I got while using this phone, because this phone, while my usage of 7 days, never had any issues when it comes to battery life, and I was really surprised. Now for context, the iPhone 6 Plus has 2950 mAh of battery, which is not far away from 3095 mAh of this iPhone 13 Pro. And more importantly, my battery health is 98%. That means it can hold 98% of that 2950 mAh charge. If your battery health is 70 or 75%, which is quite normal if you are using a phone for a very long time, then your results can be completely different than mine. So if you are facing the battery issues, I will recommend you change the battery to get improved results. But guys, I feel like saluting Apple because after so many major iOS updates, this phone shipped with iOS 8 and it's running iOS 12, so it's 4 major iOS updates, and still it is able to hold this much amount of charge, which is fantastic. So battery life, also great. So until now, the compatibility of the apps is good. There are workarounds for features, battery life is excellent, calling is also excellent. Then what about the cameras? Are they still usable, but at least by today's standards? Let's find out. Now it has one camera at the back as opposed to 3 on today's iPhones, but that's not the point. The point here is, how is that one camera on the back and one on the front? Well, if you are someone like me who rarely opens the cameras, then it is fine. But if you are serious about cameras and you use your camera for everything and take a lot of pictures, then I would say, boy, get a new phone. An 8-year gap is a massive gap, guys, when it comes to photography. We have a lot of innovations in cameras these days and the picture speaks for themselves. Look at this side-by-side comparison of both these iPhones.
I mean, in bright sunlight the shots are fine but looks a little grainy, and the indoor shots are missing a lot of details like in these shots, and in some shots the colors are off too, like in this one. This one was taken in slightly lower light.
So again, if you are someone like me, then we can give it a pass, but this camera is definitely not for everyone. Next up, it's the display. Now, as long as your screen is not cracked, you should be good to go, as this is a full HD display and it is a resolution that most of the new phones carry these days, so it's not a problem. Yes, it cannot match the brightness levels of today's iPhones. I can barely use it in direct sunlight, and it's not an OLED display, so no deep blacks or contrast ratios, and it is a 60Hz display obviously, because the only iPhone with a high refresh rate is this, the iPhone 13 Pro. The displays, guys, unless you are too critical on displays like I am, this is the easiest thing to live with. So the display is definitely not a problem here. Another good thing is the build quality. Has the material survived the wear and tear throughout these years? Yes, unless you are a victim of the bend gate. Remember that video from Unbox Therapy that changed everything? Mine has not bent and it looks like a new iPhone both from the back as well as from the front. The aluminum matte finish has easily prevented scratches and fingerprints, unlike today's iPhones, which are a fingerprint magnet at least on some part of the body. Therefore, the build quality is A+. And don't forget, guys, 2014 was a year where every other phone came in plastic, and if you compare this with any other Android phone, chances are your Android phone might look like this from the back. Remember this? Yes, it's the iPhone 3G. But Apple shipped some quality materials and build quality is not a problem, at least on my iPhone. So at this point you might be thinking that there is nothing wrong with using the 6 Plus today. But there is one major thing due to which I was so frustrated and I wanted to get back to my iPhone 13 Pro as soon as possible, and that is the performance. See, I didn't run any benchmarks or tested BGMI or COD. Instead of that, I tested if the performance is sustainable or not. That is to say, how much time is it taking to open, close and switch between the apps, and that is where this phone lost me. It literally takes 5 or more seconds to load any app into the memory, plus it has only 1 GB of RAM, and that does not make anything better here. It can barely hold 3 or 4 apps max in the memory. After that, it would reload every single app and take 5 seconds each to load more apps. And clearly I am a multitasker, and for this phone to load apps again and again meant that I had to give up on this phone much sooner than I actually planned to. So for me, guys, I think this was the make or break point and the answer to the original question whether you can use it in 2022 or not. My answer is no. Please don't use it. Get yourself a new phone. Even a budget Android phone can perform better than this and has all the features that this iPhone 6 Plus packs. And if you really want to use it as a secondary calling device, because this phone is really good at that. Another major setback can be your internal storage. Look, I have a 64 GB iPhone 6 Plus, so I can manage my storage here and there. But what if you have a 16 or a 32 GB iPhone? You might be facing severe storage issues, as 16 GB is clearly obsolete now. You can't seriously use a 16 GB phone today, and if you are still using a 16 GB phone, you are a genius and I would love to meet you. Okay then, so to conclude this video, although I found it really difficult to use this phone in 2022, I really enjoyed going back to Touch ID because I think Touch ID is way more convenient than Face ID, especially when downloading the apps from the App Store and also unlocking your phone when the phone is further away from your face. On my 13 Pro, I always have to use the passcode, but with Touch ID, that's not the problem. It unlocks my phone from any angle. So let's hope Apple brings it back someday. And for this iPhone 3G, we have a very interesting video next in the pipeline, and no, I am not going to use it in 2022. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that video. That's all, guys. If you like the video, definitely give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comment section below if you are still using the iPhone 6 Plus. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon.